us what that time was like for you.
I wasn't aware of all. They didn't tell me all that.
Lucille Ball was a comedy legend, but her kindness had limits. Some people crossed lines she never forgave. These weren't petty disputes. They were betrayals that changed who she trusted and who she erased from her life. Behind the laughter, Lucy demanded loyalty, professionalism, and respect. When someone failed her, the consequences were permanent. But now she's finally revealing the one person she hated more than anyone else, and the reason why reshapes everything we thought we knew about her. Desi Arnaz. Lucille Ball's relationship with Desi Arnaz was one of the most iconic partnerships in television history, and one of the most emotionally fraught. The two met on the set of Too Many Girls in 1940, and married soon after, launching a union that would produce I Love Lucy and 2 children. Though they built careers together, their personal bond was marked by turbulence and persistent conflict, particularly surrounding Arnaz's extramarital behavior. Ball later spoke candidly about this part of their marriage. In a 1977 interview with Barbara Walters, she described Arnaz bluntly as a loser and contrasted him with her second husband, comedian Gary Morton, whom she described more favorably.
You know, George M. Cohan always said that those people out there, the audience, they tell you what's good and what isn't. You know?
The bitterness in Ball's characterization wasn't simply rhetorical. Biographical accounts emphasize that Arnaz's reputed infidelities, including an incident Ball confronted involving actress Betty Grable, fueled jealousy and mistrust throughout their relationship. Even after their divorce in 1960, Ball's reflections on Arnaz revealed deep emotional wounds. She acknowledged their shared history and achievements, yet expressed frustration at how personal failings derailed what had been one of television's most beloved partnerships. Ball's candid remarks about Arnaz, especially calling a former partner a loser in a public interview, attest to the depth of her lingering resentment. The combination of professional collaboration and personal disappointment made their story uniquely complex. Triumph on screen, tension off it, illustrating that even historic love stories can leave behind unresolved frustration and public criticism. Patty Duke. Lucille Ball's feelings toward actress Patty Duke were shaped not by professional rivalry, but by family dynamics and concern for her son. Duke, a rising star of the early 1960s, became romantically involved with Ball's son, Desi Arnaz Jr., when he was just 17 and she was 23. For Ball, this relationship wasn't simply youthful romance. It was a public situation that invited tabloid attention and put her family under intense scrutiny. According to historical sources, Ball was openly critical and uneasy about Duke's involvement with her son, viewing the pairing through the lens of a protective mother dealing with celebrity culture's pressures and exploitative tendencies.
How many times did I hear pull yourself up by your bootstraps? Too many to count. And from myself. I thought this was some evil thing I was bringing upon myself.
Ball's disapproval reflected broader anxieties about how such relationships could impact her son's reputation and well-being in a media environment that often conflated Hollywood romance with scandal. While Duke and Arnaz Jr. did not ultimately remain a long-term couple, the situation remained a talking point about Ball's fierce protectiveness. Ball's reaction grew from a blend of genuine concern and frustration with the demands of public life, a common challenge for celebrity parents trying to shield their children from both fame's upside and its pitfalls. Unlike typical Hollywood feuds based on competition or artistic differences, Ball's issues with Duke were deeply personal, rooted in fear of negative influence rather than professional animosity. Her stance on the relationship illustrates how complicated family ties can be under the spotlight, and how protective instincts can be misinterpreted or magnified by public perception. William Frolley. Although Lucille Ball did not publicly declare hatred toward co-star William Frolley, his presence on I Love Lucy was part of a famously prickly cast dynamic. Frolley, who portrayed Fred Mertz, was a seasoned character actor with a gruff public persona that contrasted sharply with Ball's disciplined professionalism. While Frolley and Ball worked together for years, the environment on set wasn't always smooth, partly due to differences in temperament and work style.
Well, Frolley was already world famous as Fred Mertz from I Love Lucy, and Lucy loved Bill because he was another real body, just total no censor whatsoever.
Frolley was known for his dry humor and sometimes cantankerous behavior, and although Ball selected him for the role, she and Desi Arnaz agreed he would bring depth to the character. Their rapport could be understated and professional rather than warm. In the broader context of cast dynamics, Frolley's aggressiveness with other actors, particularly with Vivian Vance, underscored how personalities with strong opinions and egos shaped the behind-the-scenes atmosphere. Ball's own exacting standards and insistence on technical precision sometimes collided with Frolley's more laissez-faire approach to rehearsal and performance, but both respected the craft enough to maintain a functional working relationship. Rather than outright dislike, what emerged was a relationship marked by professionalism amid personal rough edges. Frolley's gruff energy and Ball's disciplined precision made them an unlikely match off-screen, even as their on-screen chemistry helped anchor the show's success. Vivian Vance. One of the most persistent rumors surrounding Lucille Ball's off-screen relationships concerned Vivian Vance, who portrayed Ethel Mertz on I Love Lucy. Early reports and anecdotal accounts suggested a fraught dynamic, with claims that the two women might have disliked each other. Observers pointed to moments of silence on set, subtle tension during scenes, and occasional disagreements as evidence of personal animosity. However, a closer examination reveals a far more nuanced reality. Initial misunderstandings and professional friction eventually evolved into one of Ball's most enduring and supportive friendships. Biographical sources indicate that during the first weeks of filming, Ball and Vance were still navigating how to work together under the intense pressure of a groundbreaking television program. Ball's relentless drive for comedic precision and her physically demanding style occasionally clashed with Vance's approach, which combined subtle timing and understated humor. These differences, paired with the stress of high-stakes production schedules, may have created an impression of personal conflict that, in reality, was primarily professional. As the series progressed, the dynamic shifted. Ball recognized Vance's talent, versatility, and dedication, gradually building trust and mutual respect. Vance, in turn, came to admire Ball's commitment, innovation, and discipline, forming the basis for a creative partnership that transcended the screen. Off-camera, the two women became confidants, supporting one another through personal hardships, including divorces, family struggles, and health issues. Ball would later describe Vance as one of the funniest people I've ever known, highlighting the deep appreciation and affection that grew from early challenges. This journey demonstrates how perceived animosity can often mask the growing pains of collaboration. For Ball, early tension was less about personal dislike and more about negotiating differing artistic approaches under pressure. Over time, the relationship between Ball and Vance transformed into one of profound mutual respect and lifelong friendship, illustrating how professional friction, when navigated thoughtfully, can strengthen both personal and creative bonds. Marian Lorn. Actress Marian Lorn, later beloved for her role as Aunt Clara on Bewitched, had a professional relationship with Lucille Ball that occasionally sparked creative tension. While not characterized by outright hostility, Lorn's presence in collaborative settings sometimes highlighted differences in comedic style and approach that could create friction on set. Ball, renowned for her energetic physical comedy, precise timing, and meticulous preparation, demanded a high level of consistency and exactness from her collaborators. Lorn, by contrast, brought a whimsical, understated, and improvisational sensibility to her performances, an approach that occasionally disrupted the rhythm Ball had carefully rehearsed and envisioned.
Good evening. My name is Marian Lorn. What's my line?
During early collaborations, sources indicate that Lorn's deviations from expected timing or interpretation of scenes forced Ball to adjust mid-performance, creating minor disputes over pacing and comedic beats. These disagreements were not personal attacks. Rather, they reflected the inherent challenges of marrying two distinct comedic philosophies. Ball's relentless focus on physicality, gesture, and timing meant that even small variances could ripple through a scene, affecting not just her performance, but the overall flow of the production. Lorn's style, which relied on subtle inflections and offbeat timing, was occasionally at odds with Ball's highly regimented comedic blueprint. The dynamic between Ball and Lorn underscores a broader principle in entertainment. Strong creative personalities often clash not out of personal animosity, but because their artistic instincts differ. For Lucille Ball, exacting standards and an obsession with comedic perfection were non-negotiable, shaping both her genius and the pressures she placed on colleagues. While Lorn was widely respected and admired, the intersection of two distinctive approaches to comedy illuminates how even well-intentioned performers could encounter tension. In historical context, this professional friction demonstrates the complex interplay between artistic vision, collaboration, and personality that defined much of mid-20th century Hollywood comedy. Betty Grable, Lucille Ball's difficult moments with others extended beyond partnerships into spats tied to jealousy, particularly in her relationship with Desi Arnaz. One notable episode occurred when Arnaz reportedly took actress Betty Grable out for dinner while Ball was away. Upon discovering the outing, Ball confronted Arnaz at his home in a dramatic scene that reportedly involved heated language and a raw airing of hurt and betrayal, witnessed by Arnaz's mother. This incident illustrated the emotional intensity that sometimes surrounded Ball's personal reactions to real-world tension and perceived romantic rivalry.
Watch over my marks. and my face threw a shadow on Betty Grable. And before I could say my line, which I projected, "Hello, Mrs. Johnson, how are you?" she said, "The kid's got a shadow on my face," so I had to back up.
Ball's emotional response was rooted in a deeper fear of betrayal and insecurity, familiar themes in many marriages, and reflected how her personal life was complicated by the very public nature of her career. While the confrontation was a private matter, it leaked into public biographical narratives because it exemplified the passionate and sometimes volatile dynamics that shaped her most significant relationship with Arnaz. For Ball, the Betty Grable moment showed how personal jealousy, rather than professional hatred, could lead to intense conflict. It wasn't so much that Ball hated Grable, but that the emotional context turned a professional acquaintance into a flashpoint for deeper relational tension, a reminder that celebrity romances often spill into professional spheres, especially under media scrutiny. Jane Mansfield. Actress Jane Mansfield represented a type of Hollywood rivalry that irked Lucille Ball, though it wasn't rooted in personal hatred so much as competitive tension over public image, media attention, and cultural perception. During the 1950s, Mansfield's star was on the rise, fueled by her bombshell persona, daring publicity stunts, and carefully cultivated glamour. Meanwhile, Ball had already established herself as a pioneer of television comedy, commanding audiences with her timing, physical humor, and down-to-earth personality. The contrast between Mansfield's sensationalism and Ball's grounded comedic approach created an unspoken tension that frequently manifested in Hollywood media coverage and tabloid comparisons.
I had been to 3 different universities and 2 or 3 private dramatic schools before I went to Hollywood, preparing myself for my hoped career as an actress, my hopeful career as an actress.
While there is little documentation suggesting a direct personal feud between Ball and Mansfield, observers noted that Ball's measured, disciplined approach to her craft often clashed indirectly with Mansfield's flamboyant self-promotion. Publicity cycles, gossip columns, and fan magazines frequently placed the two women in juxtaposition. The comedic icon versus the glamour star, the hard-working professional versus the daring showstopper. These comparisons amplified Ball's frustrations, particularly when she was forced to navigate interviews and appearances that referenced Mansfield's antics. This dynamic reflects a broader truth about celebrity culture in mid-20th century Hollywood. Rivalries weren't always personal, but could emerge through the pressures of public image, competition for attention, and media framing. Ball's irritation with Mansfield illustrates how professional respect, personal pride, and public perception often intersected, creating tension even without overt conflict. In the end, the rivalry between Lucille Ball and Jane Mansfield was less about animosity and more about navigating a landscape in which image, audience expectation, and cultural positioning were constantly in play, highlighting the delicate balance stars had to maintain between personal integrity and public scrutiny. Lucy commanded laughter and respect, but crossing her had real consequences. Co-stars who failed her, collaborators who betrayed her trust, and industry figures who misjudged her standards all learned quickly where the line was. The question isn't whether she held grudges, it's whether anyone should have underestimated her in the first place, and whether you would have dared to push her patience as far as they did.